Alright, here I am, sleep deprived. I have not got but like an hour of sleep this morning or last night or whatever it is. I will definitely be rectifying that after I do this recording, but I wanted to get this done since wound up and my sleep schedule is now all out of whack for due a variety of reasons. So I wanted to get this recorded before I went to sleep because it had popped up an hour or two ago while I was able to get the 1 hour of sleep I did. So here we go, Elspeth von Draken, and any new content that's coming for the Empire alongside her, and hopefully it's all very cool and exciting, and if it's not, I'm just not going to upload this video. So, yeah, here we go, Tamarcon, we already got him. Elspeth von Draken, of course, it's going to just start with what are her unique mechanics, what her unique mechanics are as a legendary lord. See, her mount, she can either take a warhorse or the Carmine Dragon, which is of course the main thing that Elspeth is known for. That she is one of the only two humans in the entire Warhammer setting who has been able to ride a dragon, the other being Karl Franz, I believe. And oftentimes Karl Franz gets forgotten that he can do that. She's got her two unique campaign mechanics, and of course, alongside, she's got the Lore of Death when you're actually on the field with her. But beyond that, the two campaign mechanics, the Gardens of Moor, the Imperial Gunnery School. We've already known about both of those via the Steam store page and so on. So, yeah, the legendary items and such. Strider, Living Darkness, increases her physical resistance. Okay, here we go. Imperial Gunnery School. So, it is, yeah, it looks about what I anticipated. It's just going to be upgrades for those units like the Clan Scryer Workshop. I see here you can upgrade handgunners, outriders, mortars, cannons, Hellblaster volley guns, Hellstorm rocket batteries, the steam tank, the Marienburg Landship. I am now seeing, though, will look like chapter icons on the top left. Even with this DLC, the Empire does not have enough gunpowder units to fill out that many chapters, so I assume that there are further upgrades. Either way, let's see. For the mortar, it's increased explosion radius. Well, that's going to be quite nice for anti-infantry killing. Camouflage netting, so stalk and snipe on the mortars. Seems like it could get OP, but stalk and snipe is always a scary combination on any ranged unit, let alone artillery. And dazed contact effect, reduced speed and melee defense. So those all seem quite good. Now let's read the little description here. The Empire's arsenal needs an upgrade fast. She offers permanent upgrades for gunnery and artillery units in return for schematics, a resource earned from using gunnery units in battle, as well as from special post-battle options when defeating enemy gunpowder units. Odd. Some Imperial gunnery upgrades are available from the very start, but innovation is nothing without the knowledge to back it up. And thus more advanced upgrades require the gunnery school itself to advance. The Imperial Gunnery School can be advanced via field testing, a series of challenges and prerequisites that prove the institution has what it takes. Once enough progress has been made, the Amethyst Armory can be unlocked. And further schematics can be spent on exclusive Amethyst units and powerful restockable single-use abilities. But I assume we won't get to see those, or they're perhaps locked behind... Well, they're not locked, but excuse me, they're probably in the gameplay video, which I am not going to watch. That's like a good solid 10 to 30 minute video if memory serves, and I'm not going to watch that when there's more interesting stuff to talk about in the blog. And also I'm sleep deprived, so I may fall asleep in the middle of the video, struggling to even get the words to exit from between my teeth here. Gardens of Moor, friendly or neutral Empire-owned settlements known to Elspeth can be selected to construct up to 5 Gardens of Moor. Once constructed, Elspeth and her army can travel instantly to a selected Gardens of Moor via the fast travel button. The Gardens of Moor also offer powerful buildings viewed in the province overview panel via the button on the right side of the icon. Oh, are Gardens of Moor effectively like under Empire buildings? So, you have Black Tower buildings, any friendly, visible, or neutral Empire settlements. Reaps powerful benefits. She can travel to them. Of course, that was the entire gimmick we knew from the jump, was that she gains the ability to teleport to various settlements. But, okay, they push back for corruption. They allow for recruitment in foreign territory, and much more. Okay, so it's just a friendly Under-Empire building. Now, what I'm curious about is, will the AI be offended when you build them, though? I remember this was a problem in Warhammer 2 for the Halfling mod. OVN's Halfling mod was that you could build friendly Under-Empire buildings in other settlements, the Halfling restaurants, which were a very fun mechanic, but it got really annoying to build them because the AI treated them as an aggression, like the Under-Empire expansions. So it'd be cool if Crib Assembly, simultaneously in making these Gardens of War, also made it where you could make non-aggressive Under-Empire expansions for the Halfling mod for OVN and for several other modders' ideas. Let's see, Theodore Bruckner, legendary hero, headsman, judicial champion, giant in stature, optional demogryph mount. Does he not have a warhorse? Yeah, he has, when he's in range of an enemy character, he gets Unbreakable, Execute, can decrease movement speed and melee defense of enemies, drops leadership. So yeah, he's got a lot of the usual anti-lord or anti-hero abilities. Makes sense. Now onto the generic units. This is always where I'm most interested, personally. The legendary characters are cool and all, but I like the stuff that can affect all factions. Master Engineer. So he's got a mortar, I'm noticing. He's got a hand mortar, but he's also got a Hochland long rifle on his back. Does he have the ability to switch between them? They're rare. They invent strange machinery. But what else do they do? He can be on foot, atop a warhorse, a mechanical steed, or even a steam tank. Interesting. Now, I wonder if Chaos Roby will keep part of his Master Engineer mod around, and he'll give the hot air balloon mount to the Master Engineer. That'd be interesting. Okay, yeah, he only has the grenade launcher. Okay, he doesn't actually bring the Hochland long rifle out. Interesting. So that was only in the trailer that they could use the Hochland long rifles, because the regular engineer, the hero engineer I'm seeing, only has the revolving rifle. The repeater rifle. Okay, interesting. Okay, reduced our reload time for artillery and war machines. Increases their accuracy. Pigeon bombs is an active ability. Naturally, I can't wait to see the animation for that. That's going to be hilarious. So, okay, we're going to have the Master Engineer and the regular engineer. The Master Engineer is going to have a lot of anti-infantry firepower with that grenade launcher, as well as his support abilities and the ability he can mount a steam tank, which is going to be one of the craziest mounts that any lord can get in the game. That's going to be nuts. That's going to make the Master Engineer one of the lord types you really go for a lot as the Empire, I think, then. Not that I'm complaining. I've always dug the Empire's more crazy steampunk side. I'm happy to see it. The Engineer Hero, let's see. He will be wielding the same gizmos and gadgets to train them. Two-handed repeater rifle. He can take the warhorse and the mechanical steed. I do like the mechanical steed. Visually, it looks very cool. I want to see the animations, but I assume that's also in the Elspeth video, which I might speed through the Elspeth video just to see it. The mechanical steed was one of those comical nonsense units that I was very curious to see, just because how can you handle it? It's craziness. It's just craziness. So let's see. Mercurial Shot is a magic missile for the engineer. A flaming projectile from afar with high penetration and explosive payload. No pigeon bombs, though. That's exclusive to the Master Engineer. Interesting. They still have the artillery bonus. Okay. I'm curious if there'll be more, because just having one unique active ability is not too crazy, besides the passive, of course. The Null and Ironsides, who are, for whatever reason, using a handgun here. I thought they had the rotary, the repeater rifles. They have heavy plate armor. They are... Okay, so they're going to be a more They're going to be not quite, I assume not quite hybrid infantry, but they've got heavy armor, and it says that the enemy will wish to keep their distance from them. Two-handed rifle with a sword as backup. Best suited to fight alongside their fellow handgunners. Their passive ability is they gain a boost to accuracy and reload speed when they shoot from a stationary position, as opposed to fighting on the shooting on the move. Shooting on the move is pretty unusual with those handguns. This screenshot's a little odd. I don't know why it's in such oddly low quality. I do like the new faces, though. I hope those new faces get implemented across the rest of the Empire. They do seem to have a new model. They're not reusing the old state troop model, which I find a little bit odd. Okay, so they're going to be... they've got the repeater handguns. That was in development. Okay. So that was... Okay, so that was... Yeah, that was just early phases of the DLC. Probably before they decided to change how DLCs would be handled with Shadow of Change. And they probably decided to be more accurate to the tabletop. I don't remember. I thought Nolan Ironsides on the tabletop didn't have the rotary repeater guns. I don't know. Either way, so they're going to be a handgunner variant that's not so crappy in melee, that's heavily armored, and will be a little bit better than your standard handgunners for sheer range capability. Interesting. The Hawkland long rifles. I like the Hawkland long rifle model. It's not as big and unwieldy as I anticipated, though, and I kind of like that the Hawkland long rifle looked big and unwieldy. But I do like the model as well. It's a modification of the state troop, but I think it works quite well. So this is going to be a much lighter unit. They're very much not going to be able to stand up to any kind of melee scrutiny. Able to single out generals and commanders from far away. Can it now? I want to say that in the past when I've tried to use sniper units against lords and heroes, they've not been too effective. They're better at just fighting at crowds of infantry. But, don't know how this works. I'm not an expert on sniper usage either. So, yeah, that's about what I expect. It's going to be a sniper unit, the same as the two we've already got between the Skeven Jezzails and the Cathay... Oh, Crane Gunners, yes. Knights of the Black Rose, founded during the darkest days of the Black Plague. Order of the Black Rose was always shrouded in mystery. With dark silver armor and red gauntlets, they are a new cavalry unit. They are heavily armored, right atop a warhorse, equipped with a sword and shield. They excel at prolonged combat without the need to cycle charge in and out. So they, lock down the enemy for their fellow cavalry to push in from the flank. So, yes, the Order of the Black Rose, the Knights of the Black Rose, are going to be a very solid, more defensive melee cavalry choice, in the same vein as the Grail Guardians for Bretonnia. Hopefully their stats are about... Hopefully their price is about equivalent and the stats match for the Reiksguard and the Knights of the Blazing Sun, there we go. I would not like for these guys to be that elite in stats. I don't want Bretonnia to be left behind in the dust by the Empire's cavalry choices, but also, I prefer the idea of the Empire's knightly orders all effectively being on equal ground, but having different specialties. Though this does call to question what the point is for the Reiksguard then, because the Reiksguard right now, the difference between them and the Knights of the Blazing Sun is that the Reiksguard have a little bit better defensive stats. In exchange for the Knights of the Blazing Sun having better charge, better melee attack, and flaming attacks. So curious to see if Reiksguard are just going to be made obsolete by this, and you'll either just be recruiting Knights of the Blazing Sun or Knights of the Black Rose. I think I've said this before. Yeah, I said this during the Throne of Decay reveal, but I am still a bit bothered by the lack of Knights of the White Wolf and Knights Panther. Because I would assume this is the last DLC the Empire's going to get, but I might be wrong. They may have the last DLC be a Cult of Ulrich DLC. Like, utterly just the Cult of Ulrich DLC, army list from the Storm of Chaos. Which, that'd be interesting. That would be interesting. There's interesting stuff to add in there. Though I do worry, though, if they did a whole Cult of Ulrich DLC, part of the issue is Creative Assembly generally is under the inclination that they have to include very big, very showy units with the DLC in order to sell the DLC. And I worry there if they might give the Cult of Ulrich DLC something really odd, like the Sons of Ulrich werewolves from the lore, that have never been a unit that Empire ever had access to on tabletop, to my understanding. And they'd be really out of place on the Empire army list as a monster unit for the Empire, which is otherwise only has Demogryphs and Griffins and the Carmine Dragon as monster units. They'd be really, really out of place. Speaking of kind of monster-adjacent stuff, the steam tank with the volley gun, which I'm now noticing only has 3 barrels. Interesting. Though it has a longer barrel up top on the tank cannon. It's labeled the Fury of Nuln, and has Karl Franz emblazoned on the turret up top, along with having a gentleman poked out the top of the turret. So that's neat. First steam tank ever designed. Came from the mind of, oh, that's just lore, flavor, who cares? Nothing new, not going to suggest anything new about the history of the steam tank. Rebuilt, remodeled, redesigned. And the volley gun variant has been swapped out for has swapped out the weapon for a new revolving triple-barreled cannon. Does it revolve? It doesn't look like it has room to revolve. I guess maybe. The bottom looks like it'd be tight for space, but maybe not. Maybe I'm not thinking wide enough. It has spinning barrels. Okay. Steam tanks as a whole have also seen an upgrade, with several new attributes and behaviors that will impact both variants. It now has a directional shield, which allows it to block projectiles from all sides, but crucially, the missile block chance is most effective when the tank is hit by a projectile at the front. Interesting. Well, that does make sense, yes, because the vulnerable engine compartment is in the back. I always did notice that. They've also opened the hatch on top. An engineer commander sits proudly in the turret, waving his sword about and shooting anyone who gets too close. The steam tank can fire all its weapons whilst on the move. Interesting. So it can now, I assume it still has to fire straight ahead of itself. But nonetheless, both steam tanks being able to fire while on the move. Well, could the turret always fire while on the move? Because the default steam tank, of course, the turret is the steam cannon. It's mounted on top. I assume they don't all have the engineer hanging out in the top compartment. I assume that the engineer dude hanging out on top is part of the new steam tank design. It'd kind of screw with the aesthetics of it if there was now always going to be an engineer on top. I prefer the idea of having a choice between 2 steam tanks that can do that. I do like the engineer commander dude hanging out on top, but I don't want to always see him there on every steam tank model, you know? Marienburg land ship. Let's see. So these are, of course, hijacked from Marienburg by Nuln, which we're producing them for Marienburg. What it lacks in sophistication, it makes up for in sheer size, ambition, and myriad of weaponry. A mobile fortress, it launches light cannon rounds from its culverin, can crush opponents underfoot. The crew is atop, armed with rifles. It can toggle the active ability, full power, to crank itself up to full speed in exchange for losing turning capabilities. And the passive ability, abandoned ship, triggers detonating the land ship and wiping out anyone nearby. Okay, so, yeah, it's going to be a faster steam tank. I don't know if it'll be particularly lighter. I'm comparing it mentally already with the land ship from the Marienburg mod, which is more of a kind of chariot-esque steam tank. It can go faster, hit a little bit harder on the charge. It's not nearly as tanky. The cannon, yeah, you can change the ammo types on the cannon in the Marienburg mod version. There's the rifleman up top, yeah. But I don't know if this will be necessarily the same. I know Creative Assembly is going to want to tend towards introducing newer, stronger, more OP units, because those tend to sell better. They just do. So I do wonder if Creative Assembly is going to be so bold as to just make the Marienburg Lounge ship outright a better steam tank. I assume that the stats will have come at some point during the video. So I guess I'll look at those later on, but not just now. Not in this video. If it is strong, it's just an outright better steam tank. Not a big fan of that. To me, the steam tank should be the ultimate endpoint unit for the Empire, besides putting a general on a Griffin, I suppose, or a master engineer on a steam tank. So I wouldn't like that, but if the land ship is a different variant of Steam Tank, I think that'd be pretty cool. Alright, Empire Legacy updates. This is the cool stuff, right? Let's see. So, just as we did with Nurgle, they're going to change things. Imperial Authority and the Elector Count system worked for Karl Franz worked quite well in Warhammer 2. The addition of new threats to the Empire in Warhammer 3 have left the system as a whole feeling quite punishing. It's not clear who's the rightful owner of a region. Current interaction between fealty and Imperial Authority often leaves the player increasing their Imperial Authority directly, while then hoping that Imperial Authority increases their fealty each turn, which doesn't give much control to the player. Imperial Authority has been reworked and separated from the Elector Count system. Interesting. The Elector Count system is often not appropriate for other Empire lords, as they aren't electors in the lore. So Imperial Authority could be used as a central mechanic for all Empire factions. Does that mean that Wolfheart and Volkmar are now going to get access to it? All Empire factions now have access to Imperial Authority. However, the feature only becomes active once they own land within the Empire territory. Okay, so not for Volkmar or Wolfheart. At least not until they take land within the Empire. The Elector Count's mechanic is now exclusive to Karl Franz. But Gelt is getting new toys. Curious? Imperial Authority would previously impact fealty via chance. Fealty now goes up and down directly via cause and effect, so players will be able to more directly see the effect of their or others' decisions and actions across the Empire. At a base level, Imperial Authority shows how much of the Empire is actually controlled by said Empire, and it will divvy out rewards accordingly, whilst giving you a clearer view of how well the Empire of Man is doing as a whole. Some tweaks and improvements have been made to the Elector Count's UI to tidy it up, fix color bleeding, and have some in the Elector Counts visible at all times. New markers have been added to the Empire region to show who their rightful owner should be. That's cool. Though in the lore law, there's a controversy there, I believe, because there's, obviously this is not going to really matter for gameplay. It'd be splitting hairs just for the sake of lore, but, they could have, let's say, Kemperbad and Karlberg both be disputed settlements, because I think Reichland has in the past claimed both of those when the Kemperbad, I think, has been split between Reichland and Talabecland before, and Karlberg split between Reichland and Midland, I think. I could be wrong. Karlberg has definitely changed hands. I don't remember for certain for Kemperbad, because Kemperbad had some lore about it becoming a free city. I don't know. Some of the Elector Count's functionality has changed. Originally, it replenished all Elector Count state troops. Now, when the Elector Counts are summoned, every Elector Count that is not currently garrisoned or besieged will be summoned to Karl Franz's location, turning the tide when faced with overwhelming odds. Does that force them to come to your location as an AI when they're not confederated? I guess that's the point of it, yeah. So Imperial Authority now is just a gauge that all factions can tell how much land in the Empire is held by the Empire. So for Wolfheart and Volkmar, it's an indicator of how things are going back home and whether or not they may want to turn back home to help the mainland Empire survive. Okay. Now I forget, though, what Imperial Authority does. So, curious. Okay, Karl Franz. So, it was important to maintain everything that people enjoy about Karl Franz while making tweaks to keep it up to snuff. His start position is tricky. Players often struggle to take control of Helmgart in a timely manner, resulting in the rest of the Empire suffering while Karl Franz is busy taking Helmgart. Elector machinations only mattered in the early to mid-game. Didn't matter that much in the early to mid-game when there were less Elector Counts, right? Because Karl Franz hasn't gone around resurrecting them yet. They're getting killed off by Festus and Vlad. Elector Count and Imperial Authority features required you to defend the Empire. Karl doesn't get many tools to help him do that. Yes, I don't play Karl Franz's campaign. I don't know. It's a very stressful campaign, and I don't enjoy the stressfulness of it much. But I don't play Empire much in general. I'll play Empire more with this update, as I love all the engineering stuff with Empire. I think that it's a big part of what makes Empire separate from a lot of the other factions, of the human factions of the Warhammer world. So I intend to play more, certainly. I'm curious to see what changes they make for Karl, if I'll play Karl more. Elspeth is definitely going to be my first priority. I've always liked Elspeth. I've always liked Vissenland. I've always liked Nuln. I've always liked that corner of the Empire. But this will change whether or not I do a Karl campaign. Making the Imperial politics system only for Karl, I like that. I like that. I like making that a unique mechanic just for Karl. It fits to his character. So, the Elector Counts and Imperial Authority mechanics require you to defend the Empire. Carl doesn't give any tools to help him do that. And he'll even be met with trespass penalties when trying to rush to the aid of his fellow man. After a certain point, prestige became an unneeded resource without anything of true value to spend it on. So, Karl Franz now begins his campaign with control over Helmgart. I assume he does not have control of Grunberg, Ubersreich, or... what's the other settlement in Reichland? I forget. But I remember Grunberg and Ubersreich. So I assume he doesn't have control of those to begin with. Those are still the Empire Secession group. And added a bunch of new tools to Karl Franz within his Electoral Machinations panel called Emperor's Decrees. Each decree is a powerful ability that can benefit either your own or fellow Empire factions at the cost of prestige. As an example, you can trigger an Inquisition in a province to clear away some of that pesky vampire or Nurgle corruption. Send aid to an Elector count that increases their fealty and spawns a temporary army for them. Or safely declare war against another Elector count without suffering fealty loss through the Casus Belli. Karl is now immune to all trespass penalties when moving through Empire-owned territory. Okay. So, in short, the changes are, Karl Franz is now the only one that has the Imperial Politics mechanic. Imperial Authority is separate from Empire Politics, as just simply a series of buffs that you get based off how much of the Empire is actually owned by Empire factions. So, going to be quite similar, I guess, to old Alariel's mechanic, where she gets buffs and debuffs depending on how much chaos corruption there is in the world and how much of Ulthuan is owned by the High Elves. But for all Empire factions, for the Empire itself. The Imperial Politics system now for Karl Franz is spend... So it's like before, where you have to help maintain the provinces under the counts. But now you can spend the resources you get on buffs on the various provinces to help to make sure they stay alive against Festus and Vlad in the early and mid game, until you can get to that late game where you start cleaning them up. And the Imperial Politics system will no longer be effectively invalidated by the late game, because you can continue to spend the prestige and whatever for buffs still. Cool, I like that. I always thought that part of the issue with Karl Franz, one of the many issues with Karl Franz's campaign, was that the interference armies, the interception armies, whatever they're called, that you could play battles as, was like, you know, 2 pistoliers and 2 swordsmen. You never got to really do anything. So if you can spend more fealty to get more substantial armies, that'd be very cool. I'm curious to see this in action. Alright, Colleges of Magic for Balthazar Gelt. This is actually going to be a pain in the ass for one of the modders I know who's working on a College of Magic mechanic. I believe it was, yeah, Shodad and Williamson were working on a College of Magic mechanic. Those poor bastards. So Balthazar Gelt deserves a unique faction mechanic of his own. He's grown weary of his current starting position. I was wondering about that, because Gelt, if Gelt starts right next to Elspeth, Gelt starts in Solland, which is right next to Wissenland. And it looks like Elspeth's going to start in Wissenland, so it doesn't make any sense for her, Gelt, and Karl to start all 3 in a little L shape. Well, actually, with the webcam there, I should make an L shape like that, because from the webcam's perspective, it's reversed. But Balthazar Gelt, yeah, okay, he's getting a unique faction. He has moved to Cathay, starting just shy of some nomads within the Temple of Elemental Winds, and right next to his good friend, the Iron Dragon. As he helps the Iron Dragon deal with the nomads, he is presented with a series of dilemmas that pave the way for his time in Cathay, or his return to the Empire. Okay, so he starts in the southern provinces of Cathay, then. Interesting. Well, what if they get around to adding the Fire Dragon Li Dao? Curious. Okay, Colleges of Magic. Whenever Gelt fights a battle with a wizard in his army, he will acquire arcane essays, with a number of arcane essays per battle correlating with the number of wizards present. Arcane essays can be spent on gaining instant access to wizards from every lore of magic, allowing him to accrue spellcasters quicker and easier than anyone else on the map. Once you've acquired I assume that there's still no gold wizard, though. They still want Gelt to be the only gold wizard. That bugs me, though. Once you've acquired a new wizard, use a gray wizard, for example, more actions are unlocked for that college pertaining to that specific spellcaster. Arcane essays can be spent to unlock the Dance of Despair Cataclysm spell, so long as a gray wizard is within your army, or a unique effect. to grant the stalking stance to that army containing the Grey Wizard, granting them a 100% ambush success chance. That's OP. I know Crib Assembly is going to tend towards more overpowered campaign mechanics because those are the most popular ones. Especially after Shadows of Change, has made things so unpopular. But, yeah. Okay, with a Jade Wizard, you can heal your entire army in one go. That also sounds OP. Okay, yeah, I guess that's what I should have anticipated. These changes and additions are designed to revitalize the Empire across the board and make their new arrival. There's plenty to sink your teeth into. I'm a little sad that the Empire still doesn't have any particularly interesting economics. But at the same time, that was the primary thing I wanted to see changed with the Empire. Well, in truth, the primary thing I wanted to see changed with the Empire was changes to the mechanics, the campaign mechanics, the faction mechanics, which we got. And that's very cool. And that makes both Gelt and Karl Franz interesting to go back and play now. For me, at least. I'm sure I know a lot of people adore Karl Franz and play him endlessly. So, for them, it's going to be, I guess, some nice changes. For me, it's a nice change. Just now, I'm actually going to be curious to play them. I did want to see the Empire get some changes to their building tree to just have something more interesting to do for money purposes. But I wasn't really expecting it. Because my issue with the Empire, a lot of the times when I play them, is that their building tree is very simplistic. You build recruitment buildings to get recruitment, you build your garrison, you build your money building, you build your public order and growth buildings, and they all do exactly what they say on the label. Nothing does anything particularly interesting or creative. But I didn't expect that to change because I kind of figured that was intentional on Crave Assembly's part, that the Empire was built to be the most basic faction from the building tree perspective. And it always struck me as odd when they introduced the Elector Count mechanic for Karl Franz that it was so bizarre and in-depth. So, yeah, I'm sure there'll be a mod to fix that anyways to give the Empire more interesting economics than just build money buildings to get money. But yeah, this later bit here at the end is just saying, yeah, next week is Malachi McKyson's, and the week after that is the Free LC blog post and a FAQ. So we'll be getting to Epidemius. So let me go back, actually, to look at this Gelt College's magic mechanic again real quick. So, once you've acquired a new wizard, okay, so it's going to be like the Bloodlines mechanic for the vampire counts, I suppose, where you have to, spend points into that to unlock a hero early without having to get a building for it. I guess that increases the cap. I wonder if they're unique named wizards or if it's just increasing the hero cap. And alongside increasing the hero cap, it will give new active abilities, and possibly passives, for any armies that has a wizard of that type in the army. So not too dissimilar from the Vampire Count Bloodline mechanic. The Vampire Counts obviously are going to need a massive overhaul to make them more interesting than what they are right now, especially since their primary mechanic is currently being jacked then by Balthazar Gelt, it seems. It does bug me that we're not seeing a gold wizard here. The Empire, the Crave Assembly is stuck very much so to the idea of Balthazar Gelt being the inexplicable only gold wizard in the Empire. That's annoying, but is what it is. I guess they had their priorities in other places for free LC. And then again, they haven't, there could be still a free LC gold wizard hero. Once we get to the Epidemius blog, they could reveal that. They could just drop that on the side like, hey, gold wizard. But, yeah, this all sounds like very cool stuff. I'm curious to see what the actual stats look like, the numbers look like for Karl Franz Lecter count mechanics now. As both Gelt and Elspeth's abilities campaign mechanics sound really crazy strong. So I have to assume that Karl's campaign abilities are also going to be pretty crazy strong. So curious to see that. I do like the visuals of a lot of the units. I think that some of them are kind of deliberately kind of underwhelming. I do hope, which is the visual style of the Empire, honestly, is deliberately underwhelming in a lot of regards compared to the rest of the Warhammer world. I do hope that the rest of the Empire is going to get somewhat of a graphics touch-up. I'm not expecting a mass overhaul. I think by now the pajamas aesthetic is just what we're stuck with the Empire. But I would like some degree of graphics touch up because a lot of the textures in the Empire are just dog ugly. And I'd like for them to fix the bug with them all having blonde facial hair. So that's one thing I'd like to see that was not addressed in this blog. It could be, could not be, who knows. They didn't fix the issues in Warhammer 2 with the Hunter and the Beast, so it may just not be a priority, especially because there really aren't that many people complaining about it. And for me, I guess it's not really that big. I'm still gonna, in the future, anytime I play Empire, I'm gonna be using a graphics overhaul for them, a reskin. Just because even if they do update the textures, I just don't like the pajamas look for them. I like for them to be at least a little bit more grungy and have a little bit more ornamentation about themselves. But nonetheless, yeah, for a guy who's not really an Empire guy, like the Empire's probably in my bottom 5 for factions in Total War Warhammer, which is not really an insult. I love pretty well everybody in I love everybody in Total War Warhammer. But the Empire is sitting next to, like, Vampire Coast. I don't even know who else. Maybe Norska. For the guys that I play the least in Total War Warhammer. So, for me, these changes all sound very cool. I'm sure there are probably some Empire fans who are upset with some of the mechanic changes to Karl Franz. But, for me, this sounds interesting. And it makes me more curious to play the Empire than I usually am. So, I count that as a success. A success. And I'm slurring and skipping words here, so I should probably go ahead and wrap this up. I think I'm also rambling on. So I better wrap this up and go to sleep. So, folks, hope this update is cool. Curious to see what the dwarfs get next week. They're saving them for last, I notice. Which is funny, because I think out of the Warhammer 1 base factions, the dwarfs are more or less the ones who are in the most fine state for me in Warhammer 3. Then again, the greenskins are so OP with that wall mechanic. I can't see Crave Assembly touching that. Just because that seems like something that a lot of the fans would like. How strong it is to just getting the 2 armies running around like that. Anyways, I'm not going to ramble on further. Hey, it looks cool. It looks cool, and it makes me interested to play Empire. So there we go. Mission accomplished. And I'll see you next week, folks.